we begin, if we could just verify that everybody is 18 years or older. Thank you. Have you ever wondered where the language we speak came from? Today, I will inform you about the history of the English language. The English language has evolved over centuries, creating different versions spoken worldwide. Knowing a little bit about its history and where it came from will help you to better understand it. Me, I've spoken the English language all my life, which brought up my curiosity as to where it came from and where it is spoken worldwide. The English language has been around for over 4,000 years. Many of us grew up speaking it, so let's just take a minute and discuss what made it what it is today. Looking back at the 7th century, when the first text of Old English emerged, Old English is a little hard for us modern speakers to understand because it is so relatively close to the German language. But looking at the 8th century is when Old English came into contact with Old Norman, which is an ancestor of modern French. During that time, Old Norman marked the beginning of the development of Middle English, but during the 16th century was the mark of the Great Vowel Shift, which kind of launched the literature back then. Actually, literature was introduced back then. Some of the most important text of the English language was published back then, such as poems written by William Shakespeare. It was during the 18th century when the language really took off and started spreading throughout the world by British explorers and scientists, because they were introducing it to nearly every continent throughout the world. But it wasn't until the 20th century that English became known as a global language. Now that you kind of know just a little bit about the history, let's kind of take a look on where it is spoken worldwide. Approximately 360 and 400 million people speak English as their native language worldwide. It is initially the native language in over 67 countries. The greatest number of English speakers can be found here in the United States, over here in the United Kingdom, up here in Canada, down here in Australia, and last but not least, Ireland. That's a lot of people around the world speaking the same language, but in different versions. I would just kind of like to show you an example of what I mean by different versions. If you kind of look over here at my chart, it shows the United States and the United Kingdom. And when I say different versions, I mean when they mean something, but they just have a different word for it. When you look at this, like when we say we're going on a vacation, somebody in the UK might refer to it as going on a holiday. Kind of similar down here. If somebody here in the United States would say, I need to use the bathroom, somebody in the UK might refer to it as they needed to use the loo. And another thing that kind of makes it different is the way they pronounce it. Americans pronounce the R in every word. But in the United Kingdom, they only pronounce the R when it is at the beginning of a word. So when we look at this and we say color, they might just say color. You know, they just don't pronounce that R at the end. Also, something different there is just their spelling. It could be pronounced the same, but just spelled a little bit different. So when we look at airplane, it's A-I-R, plane. But in the UK, they might spell it A-E-R-O, plane. But they're both pronounced airplane. Looking up here, you know, we might look at one similar picture, but what we see is a cookie, And what somebody in the UK might see is a biscuit. But when we think of a biscuit, we don't refer to it as a cookie. So that's another difference that they have, and that's kind of similar down here with the fries. We consider them French fries, but somebody in the UK might consider it chips. But when we think of chips, you have potato chips or wood chips, so we refer to chips just a little bit different. But looking at this, it's obvious that they speak the same language, but when you looked a little bit closer, you saw that it was a little bit different. The English language has been around for a really long time. It is one of the most used and oldest languages in the world. Considering it's been around for over 4,000 years, just kind of goes to show how much it has evolved and changed and spoken all over the world. I hope next time you hear somebody with an accent or refer to something a little bit different than you would, you just consider its amazing history and how far it's come and how many people all over the world use it every day. Thank you. Oh my God.
Well done. Once you got
That was
that,
exhausting.
once you got there, girl, you did it.
Boot and